If you're a founder, you know that fundraising is a big part of the job. What you might not know is that Carta is there to help. Carta's new fundraising suite provides startups of all stages the best tools and support to easily issue safes, accurately forecast dilution, and quickly close funding rounds. Save time, money, and make your next round your best yet. To learn more or to get started, go to carta.com/fundraise. That's carta.com/fundraise. Welcome to Inc. for Starters with Alexa Von Tobel. I'm Alexa, a serial entrepreneur myself and founder and managing partner of Inspired Capital, a venture firm that backs fearless founders who are solving some of the biggest challenges facing humanity. Now in our 6th season, we sit down each week with one of the best founders on the planet to hear their story of guts, inspiration, and drive. Let's dive right in. Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Alexa Von Tobel, and this week I'm so excited for you to meet Annie Lamont, co-founder and managing partner of Oak HCFT, a venture capital and growth equity firm investing in the healthcare and fintech sectors, managing almost $6 billion in AUM. Prior to founding Oak HCFT, Annie spent 28 years at Oak Investment Partners, where she served as a managing partner. Annie has appeared on the Forbes Midas list 5 times and was named one of the 100 most influential people by Modern Healthcare. Annie has an impressive track record of notable investments and exits, including leading early rounds in the iconic $10 billion plus companies such as One Medical, iHealth, Cotiviti, athenahealth, and Devoted Health. She's successfully exited over 70 companies and had 15 IPOs. In addition, she serves on the board of directors of Bloomberg and has served on the board of trustees for Stanford University, from which she holds a BA degree. She is also the First Lady of Connecticut. And with that, let's welcome Annie. First of all, Annie, it's so fun to have you on. I followed your career, so inspired quite literally by everything that you've built. You've spent decades as a leading VC, and in 2014, you launched Oak. First things first, what have you built? What is Oak in your mind? Tell us how you think about it.
The way I think about it is we're problem solvers who are maniacally focused on improving and transforming healthcare and fintech through amazing entrepreneurs. We love them. We love working with them. We're passionate about these two spaces. And so it's really about people who care about transformation and really want to back the best and be the best firm possible.
Before launching Oak, you were at Oak Investment Partners for 28 years. What was the impetus? What was the aha moment for you to decide to go build something new from the ground up? What was the why?
There were 2 things. One, structurally, we were in a firm where the other investors looked at the world as it was 20 years earlier. You know, Jedi Knights, every venture capitalist sort of out for himself, just giving good advice. And I think structurally the world had changed in venture, where we were a service industry to entrepreneurs. Like, it's all about the entrepreneurs, supporting the entrepreneurs. You needed to build a great talent function, help them with marketing, help them with tech, in every way you can. So we wanted to be more of a full service firm and stay as competitive as possible. And we can only do that by driving deep into these 2 sectors with a host of individuals that would surround sound our entrepreneurs and make them the best they could possibly be and support them. And so we wanted to do that. And I think we had a view of we were more team oriented and just had this view of intellectual honesty, apolitical environment that we had between Andrew Adams, my co-founder, and myself, and wanted to, drive that forward.
I love it. Early on in your career, you obviously decided that you wanted to dive into healthcare. Now, healthcare and fintech obviously is near and dear to my heart, given my career and here at Inspired. What drew you in? Why? Why those 2 sectors to devote your career to?
I'd say 2 things. One, life sciences initially, as I don't invest in biotech any longer, but my first 15 years in venture, I did want to, one, create my own niche. And I was in a firm where a lot of people were focused on hardware. You think about the 80s, it was more about hardware than software. There was only one public software company. And I did have an interest in software, but there really wasn't enough opportunity to keep one busy in the early and mid 80s in that area. And I love the science and I love the impact that it had on everyone. Like, healthcare is a topic near and dear to all of us. So that was fun and exciting, and 15 years of building, companies in that sector. And then later in the, think about 99, 2000, the dot-com period, the advent of the internet, It was also a period where there were 4,000 public life science biotech companies and 5 approved drugs. So I also knew it was not going to be a great decade for biotech because it had proven harder to take molecular biology and translate it into drugs that worked in the human body. And everyone assumed that everything would work. So if you think about the old chemical drugs, they just assumed that because it was molecular biology and you were adapting to humans, that it would work. And it didn't. And it took a long time to realize that. And I was frustrated with the never ending increase in costs and lack of efficiency and lack of impact in the healthcare world, just in terms of the delivery system. I just felt like if you can get ahead of type 2 diabetes, if you can get ahead of some of these things by behavior change and thinking about the system wrapping around individuals and improving, that would be really exciting to me. And I had an incident as growing up where my father got very sick and I had to drop out of Stanford my junior year. He didn't have healthcare insurance or coverage. So I had been impacted deeply by the system and really just got passionate about improving it and making it mission, lowering costs and improving quality. And out of that came my investment in 2000 in athenahealth, which really started the whole thing. It was the first cloud-based software company in healthcare. And it just led me to the next one in Cotivity, which became also one of the leading cloud-based software companies initially. And so that was the start. And I just learned how fun it was to really be addressing something so profoundly impacts everyone's lives.
Annie, one thing I want to repeat, you have successfully exited over 70 companies and had over 15 IPOs, and I'm sure many more to come. I would be remiss not to ask you, it's the thing I'm most excited to ask you, which is as you think about the next decade in healthcare, what are some of the things you're most excited about where you're spending your time and energy?
It's a great question. And it's, I think, really important as an entrepreneur, as an investor, to be ahead of the pack. And I would say it's one reason that we invested in fintech, because I wanted to have something new and interesting and exciting to invest in that just moved a different muscle. And if you think about Athena Health, that was initially not an electronic health record, but all about rev cycle management and payments and fintech. And so it was great to be able to learn a new area and develop that and be early in 2002 when we established that practice. So what are we excited about now? I think that it is hard not to be excited about Gen AI. And I generally don't climb on the hype cycle, and I'm cautious about new technologies, but there is no question that this is the most game changing technology that we have been involved with. The adoption of it is faster than I think any other technology in human existence. And you can see the impact that it's going to have on one, obviously workflow, cost, efficiency. I mean, nothing has really impacted that over the last 20 years. We've only added cost to the healthcare system. We haven't actually been able to reduce cost in the healthcare system. And I think with Gen A applied to workflow, let's just start with the administrative side. Administrative costs have exploded 10x in the last 20 years, way more than clinical. And I think the impact that we can have on that on the healthcare side is profound.
Let's pull the thread on that a little bit more.
Yeah.
I hear you. You don't typically jump on hype cycles. And I deeply agree with your point. When the world zigs, you want to zag and go focus where people aren't going. You recently wrote that Oak has refined your approach to evaluating AI native companies. Talk a little bit about what you mean by that.
What I mean is that there are two ways to go, essentially. I mean, you can be horizontal, and there are going to be, the Googles of the world, right? There's going to be OpenAI and other companies that are addressing the horizontal issues of LLMs and other infrastructure. That is not our game. We are sector focused. So the way we think about it is use case and demand in each of our sectors. And since we know those intimately, I think our hit rate should be incredibly high in terms of success. And it's really like vertical application software, just supercharged. And so if you're looking at a use case and you know that it hasn't been able to solve all of them because one, access to unstructured data and be able to get into the workflow on that and impact it, that's going to be huge. I mean, the clinical side, I think, is going to be impacted, but more to come there. And obviously more risk there and more regulation there. I think administrative side is going to be incredible. And when you look at fintech, I mean, we have an example in Blackor already. In that case, they're looking at tax prep, and that's a process now that Takes about 3 weeks, is all principally outsourced to places like India, and it's human labor. And that 3 weeks, Blackwater is condensed in tax prep to minutes and all automated, far more accurate. And that's just like, that's going to be game changing in terms of the cost of filing of your taxes ultimately. So it's just fun to see these things that are here, real today, now.
Those are two very good examples. Give us some other examples of things that you don't believe are overhyped, but that you or the team at Oak really see coming and are paying close attention to.
Over 10 years ago, we backed some of the first value-based companies in healthcare, which simply means that you're getting paid for outcomes and not a fee for service. Let's, encourage people in the system to just do things, which is just human nature, right? If you're getting paid to do things, you're going to do more things to people. And I think we've learned that being in the hospital is the most dangerous place in the world to be. Infection rates, your odds of getting an infection going into a hospital or having an incident post-surgery is higher than people really calculate. And so I think that's something that we're always trying to avoid, hospitalizations, and focus on that. And I think that, lately, value-based care, people only think of it as the Oak Streets and Village MDs. And there are just so many other ways that we can have models that are effective and impactful. And not to say that we sold Village MD to Walgreens a couple of years ago, and still big believers in that approach. It's just there are so many other ways that go beyond that we're looking at and are excited about.
Where are you not excited? Where are some places where you feel like maybe the innovation noise is unwarranted?
Yeah, I think there will be, in the long term, a huge impact to drug development with the use of Gen AI and models that come out of that. But I think it is a very, very long term bet. And there will be very few companies initially that are successful at that, because you don't know. I mean, just going back to, people thought, biologicals, molecular biology would lead to drugs that would automatically work in a body. Until you get a drug into a body, you don't know all the implications of it. And it's very hard to know that. So you have to go to the work to run the models, to then, identify molecules or create them which have impact. And that's just a very long road. I think we're a little more skeptical of companies that are saying that they're going to build models that then create successful drugs. I just think it's a really long road, and only so many of them are going to be successful.
Annie, I'd love to shift a little bit to fintech. Obviously, it is a big part of your practice. Talk a little bit about what you're most excited there.
One area we're actually very excited about is LATAM. And if you think about what's going on in India, LATAM, other areas outside the US, I think that probably the biggest opportunities are going to be outside versus inside the US, simply because there's more friction here. There's already this system built. And I think you have Pix in Brazil, that's created this basically Visa-like infrastructure connecting the banks, but with little to no cost. And so you've got people that can build on top of Pix, which is effectively like real-time payments. So it's like connecting in the US ACH accounts for everyone. And that is something that we're seeing lots of companies building on top of, which is going to create, tremendous value in B2B payments, which B2B payments, even in the US, are only half digitized. The rest is really check, wire, cash. And so we have a long way to go in like vertical B2B payments in the United States. So we think that's a real opportunity. And I think you're still talking about core infrastructure that needs to be developed in LATAM, just keep payment gateways, processing, things that can be done more efficiently. And places like Mexico, you've got like 10% of the population has mortgages. The whole credit environment is, how many individuals have credit cards? There's just tremendous runway to do things. And you don't even have to apply Gen AI to those things. That's just like core basic infrastructure that needs to happen.
We agree with you, Annie. That is a place where we're also excited and share your enthusiasm. You have spent so much time as a fabulous board member. Talk a little bit about your lessons learned as being in the investor seat, the board member seat, to helping guide these companies. Again, you have many, many, many IPOs under your belt. You're one of the most storied investor in this category. Tell us what you've learned about being a good investor and what that means in the dark times.
Mhm. Well, there are a couple of things. Sometimes people ask me about being a board member. What's my role? And I think the reality is My role depends on the nature of the board and the nature of the entrepreneur. What do they need? And trying to figure out like what role you play that's needed on that board that the entrepreneur is not hearing and getting. And, and being that trusted advisor to the entrepreneur, I think is incredibly important. I think it's very hard for people to do hard things, and hard things are what's happened in the last couple of years, in terms of you really need to pivot. This business model is not working. Like you need to redirect. And I think that's the hardest thing, I think, for entrepreneurs to do that are like all in. And honestly, it's just like nobody wants to deliver bad news. So I think being able to deliver that in a way that's constructive and supportive, and our job is to make the entrepreneur win, like that's what we want to do. So it's all about that and making sure, we're bringing the best talent and they understand. So it's just that like constructive give and take with an entrepreneur and your desire to make them win that ultimately will make the company win.
I think that's right. I look back, Annie, in my own board at LearnVest, my toughest board member was also my most empathetic, and I trusted he cared about me the most.
Yeah.
And he gave me the roughest feedback.
Right.
And I would see an email from him and I'd be like cringing a bit because I knew it was going to be a dose of medicine. And in the rearview mirror, he was the kindest human being on my board. I wanted to think a little bit about what you've learned about building a firm. You are a founder in your own right. You
Right.
built
Yeah.
an organization that manages almost $6 billion and growing. When you think about your role at building an exceptional firm that you have to date, you have built an exceptional firm that people like me admire greatly. What have you gotten right?
People. We take so much time with every person that we hire, and we have built much of the firm from the sort of bottom up. And part of that was actually trying to create some diversity while hiring the best. And I think we have a particular culture and approach to what we're doing. So we wanted to sort of build people into that culture and approach. And obviously have a number of women on the team, and it was hard to bring those people in laterally because they didn't really exist in the industry. So, we love that everyone cares about the team, that everybody still feels 10 years in, like we're a startup. Like we have like intensity, like we have people who really care about making our firm the best. And so it's individual play, but it's very much team play. And I think people have bought into that and really care about the team, the company, the entrepreneurs coming first. And it's just like building those values, just make a difference and make it fun.
And we'll be right back after a message from our sponsors. Alexa here. Not only do I get the opportunity to speak with all types of founders on the Inc. Founders Project podcast, I'm also a founder myself. I believe that when the world zigs, you have to zag. So in 2008, when the entire world was in free fall during the global financial crisis, I decided to drop out of business school to solve a problem I couldn't get out of my head. LearnVest was born, and I set out on my fundraising journey to build the first digital financial manager accessible to the masses. I can't stress enough how vital fundraising is to a startup and how many no's I had to endure. Carta knows this and had founders in mind when they created their fundraising suite, providing tools and support to take the friction out of fundraising and saving founders time and money, allowing founders to focus on their goals, not the admin work needed to close a round. From simply issuing safes to quickly receiving funds, Carter's fundraising suite helps their cap table customers raise a better fundraising round. To learn more or to get started, go to carta.com/fundraise. That's carta.com/fundraise. I want to transition a little bit to you, Annie. You grew up in Wisconsin.
I did.
And I know you now have children, and so you understand sort of your own childhood to how you got here and how you've raised children. Can you give me a sense of, if you think about something that was tremendously impactful to your success today, if you had to draw one straight line from a moment or a thing that your family did that really set you up to thrive, what was it?
Well, I'm the last of 6 kids in a small town, Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin. Benign neglect might be one of them, but I just love to read. I loved learning. That was my passion. And I love books, and my family left me alone to do that. And I would say, unconditional love from my parents. I mean, they really supported me in whatever I wanted to do. And I think having that, and then, also navigating a large family in terms of dealing with lots of personalities, and was probably a great education also. And I do think they had the right values. And, growing up in a small town, you really cared about the community. And my family, my parents were both, my father was a residential real estate broker. He didn't make any real money at that time, but they were kind of pillars in the community. They got involved, socially and everything. My mother spoke Spanish, so she was when the Cuban migration happened in the early 60s, she was helping people, assimilate in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where there weren't a lot of Spanish speaking people. So just things like that. I mean, I just think that combination of integrity and also community spirit.
I sold my company, Learn Best to Northwestern Mutual, and spent 4 years in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and I will say it is a wonderful place and culture to be raised in that I really sincerely cherish. You attended Stanford at a moment where Silicon Valley was quite literally exploding. How do you think that college experience, and I know you had to step away from college for a moment, how do you think that changed your perspective on the landscape?
I mean, talk about broadening your horizons. I was a big fish in a little pond in Whitefish Bay. And that can do culture and attitude, just it was infused into everything in that environment at that time. I don't know, it just made me smile, and it just made me feel like, I could just do anything. And I just think that positivity around new ideas and embracing them, is not necessarily something that I found in the Midwest as much at that time. And so I think if I hadn't gone to Stanford, my life would have taken a completely different direction.
You have this quote I love that I want to transition towards about working with founders for decades across multiple startups. You said, these are friends, these are comrades. We are in battle. We're not just there for the length of 10 years for one company, but 20 to 30 years for 3 to 4 companies. This very much is your strategy and your core playbook. How do you think you got that flywheel going? And how do you think about that flywheel and maintaining it?
Well, some of it's luck, right? You are at the right time and place and meet the right person. I mean, I think certainly having athenahealth be my very first deal company that I invested in tech-enabled services and solutions in healthcare was fortuitous. But I do think it's also a judgment on people and connectivity. And I think that was like the instigator in that area in terms of being the flywheel. I mean, obviously, I had a successful career in life sciences and some services before that, but that was game changing. And so and the Park brothers backed them at Athena, backed Todd again at Castlight. And obviously, we led the Series A and Devoted. And so that has been a long-standing and wonderful relationship with Todd and Eddie, who are best of the best, like the 1% of healthcare or any entrepreneur. And you're right that their tenacity and vision, the combination is unbeatable.
As you think about managing stress yourself, because again, you are a founder running a very, very prominent and wildly successful firm, and your husband has a really big job. How have you learned to navigate managing stress in general, and any tips there?
Ha. Oh, running, that was really just, I don't run 6 days a week like I used to, but every day there's, like the first thing I do is exercise into their, like running soul cycles. I just think that that's my savior. Always has been. When I love it, I love being outside. So that grounds me. And, and frankly, being with my kids and being with my new grandchild, I actually think it's been really helpful to be a mother and to have children, just to have perspective. I just think, you walk in the door from a day of crazy and having them there, or having them, like text me now throughout the day, or calling me with this or that, celebration or problem. You just keep focused on what matters.
I think that's well said. Last question before we move to a quick fire round. You've seen a lot, and I know it's hard to pick one, but if you had to say just one thing that really you have learned over and over again, pay it forward to all of us.
Never compromise on integrity. Like, I mean, especially in the areas that I work in, highly regulated in fintech and healthcare. I mean, you could say that obviously for any area, because the only thing you can recover from, that's very difficult to recover from, is someone who is unethical. You just have to have it. And I do think that's compromised sometimes more in Silicon Valley. And sometimes those things, people break things and it's fine and they'll change the world. But I'm in the life's too short. And, in healthcare, we touch human beings' lives and you got to ask for permission, not forgiveness in our world. So that matters.
That is very, very well said and an incredibly important North Star. I'm going to move to a quick fire round where you just tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. And I'm really excited to ask you some of these questions, Annie. What is an interview question you like to ask to really get to the core of somebody?
The fun interview question is, what can you tell me about yourself that very few people know? You're like, no one knows. The one that really gets to the core, I would say, what have you initiated or created yourself that you're proud of? And it could be like you created a tutoring system for disadvantaged kids, like something that actually says something about who they are that goes beyond the resume.
I like that. I like that a lot. What is a book that you've read of any kind, any flavor? There's no right answer,
Yeah.
but had a major impact on your life or the way you think?
That's easy. To Kill a Mockingbird. My sense of social injustice and my caring about it, I think was shaped by that more than almost anything.
I love that. What is one thing you wish you knew before you started Oak?
Well, I should have done it a lot earlier. So the thing I wish I knew was that we could do it. And secondly, how gratifying it would be to create something of your own. I mean, in this case, so gratifying to work with Andrew Adams, my partner, who is incredible, like my work husband, who I deeply respect, such high integrity, and to, help build careers for individuals and see them grow and blossom. I would say that has been far more gratifying than I thought. It wasn't my goal in life to, manage people or build an organization. I was really just helping entrepreneurs build theirs.
I love it. A quote or a mantra that you really live by, it's kind of like ingrained in you. What would it be?
Me too. Eleanor Roosevelt, do something every day that frightens you, that scares you. I think that's really important. Like, make yourself alive, keep challenging yourself. And then Sandra Day O'Connor is a huge hero to me. And I think, she just said, just do it. Before Nike said it, she said it. It's just like, don't look at the past, look forward, just be pragmatic and, keep moving forward one step after another. And look, like she was second in her class at Stanford and law school and couldn't get hired anywhere and became somebody's secretary. And she just kept no chip on her shoulder, just boom, 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 through the state legislature in Arizona, which was completely misogynistic. and she became the leader of, that, I think, the House in Arizona, and then obviously the first female Supreme Court justice. So
I love that. I love that so much. Last question. What is one thing you're keeping your eye on in innovation? It does not have to be healthcare or fintech. What is it?
Okay, so spent the afternoon at OpenAI this week in San Francisco. So fun. So watching their, some sort of speech to speech capability, right? That's just incredible in terms of their bot. And what I'm really excited about, because actually I don't even think this is on my website anymore, but I used to say, but the superpower that I would want to have is to be able to speak any language, every language, any language, and to be able to travel the world doing that. And obviously you understand cultures better if you understand their language. But, now in the next couple of years, I mean, literally we're going to have earbuds in our ears. And if other people have that translates English to any language in the world, I mean, like, that's just incredible. I mean, think about the power of that. It's just game changing.
It's wild. It's wild. You and I get so excited about the future. It's just so clear to me how contagious that is, our enthusiasm. Annie, just sincerely thank you. As one manager to another, I am so grateful that people like you exist before me, for us to watch what you do, look up to what you do, and just for being a fabulous human being, moving the world forward in such a profound way on two categories that obviously matter wildly for humanity. Thank you so much. We're rooting for you in every way. Everybody out there, if you want to learn more about Oak, I want you to check out oakhcft.com. That's oakhcft.com. And you can join us next week for a new episode of For Starters with Alexa Von Tobel. Annie, thank you. We're rooting for you.
Thanks, Alexa. Really fun to talk to you.